Sometimes the best thing to happen to you is getting your ego dragged through the mud. And there's no better way to get your ego dragged through the mud than by getting your ass kicked in front of a bunch of people. Even more powerful is if you get your ass kicked in front of a bunch of people on television after you told everybody they should watch the fight because you're going to show out and do your thing. But you go out there and you get folded up, man. You get that work done. So this is back in September 2016. So about 8 years ago, I was set to fight Trey Lippe Morrison on Showtime Showbox. And for those of you who don't know or are new to the channel, I had an extensive, highly successful amateur career. I won a national championship. I had a sponsorship that was paying me like $100,000 a year. And I went to the Olympic trials. I didn't do so hot there. Dominic Brazil, good friend and great fighter, man. He waxed me there, but I had beat him beforehand, so he was getting his revenge. It was solid. And then when I turned pro, it only took me 6 fights before I got promotion. I got a promoter interested in me. Rock Nation Sports ultimately signed me. And it was a good time because there ain't no money in boxing. And the best way to get that money, that little bit that's there, is to get a promoter, man. I went from fighting for like $500-$600 a match to a minimum of 4,000, not 400, plus a living stipend. So all of this is great. And they finally get me a television date to fight this cat, Trey Lippe Morrison. Now, anybody who is in the boxing space will know the name Tommy Morrison. That was his father. Great badass white fighter, man, who he had great power and was the champ. I think he was the WBA champ. Unfortunately, he passed away, I believe, from complications of HIV/AIDS. Anybody who knows for sure can spit game on that in the comments. But a lot of this athleticism stuff, man, this genetic. His son, Trey Lippe Morrison, he was a D1 football player and then decided he wanted to go box. And it just so happened that we crossed paths. And I believe he was 11-0. I was 13-0 going in. And I felt good about the fight, for real, man. I felt great about it. I thought I had a pretty good chance to win it. Pundits were, a little 50-50 on it. But I go in there, man, in his backyard, mind you, in a place called Miami, spelled like Miami, but pronounced Miami, Oklahoma. And I go in there and I'm moving around, I'm doing good. And then out of nowhere, man, I slip. It wasn't until I watched this fight like 8 months later, because it took me a long time to watch the fight, because seeing yourself get like cracked and beat up, man, that's hard for any man to do. It's like when you break up with somebody and you can't do the stuff you guys used to do. You can't look at the pictures. You can't look at any of the gifts. You just got to put it in the box and burn it. It's kind of like that, man, because my ego, I got broken up with my ego. My ego got shattered when I thought I slipped. And when I look back at it later, it turns out he got a great right hand and around my guard and cracked me. Dropped me, man. I sprung right back up because I didn't want people to know I was hurt. I should have took the time, because you don't have to get up immediately. I should have took the time and just let myself recover. But I sprung right back up, and then Trey jumped on me and put me down. And I lost in the most embarrassing way in the first round by a knockout on TV. It was so bad that by the time I got home, I had already had an overnight delivered letter from Rock Nation telling me they were releasing me from my contract, right? That sucked. But what it ended up doing for me in the most unexpected way is it really changed how I looked at the world. Because, I go back to my hotel room that night after the fight. I sleep it off. I don't check my phone. I don't see social media, man, because social media is vicious. People were attacking me already. I already knew that. I just didn't want to verify that. I didn't want to deal with that. I just needed to nurse my wounds and sit and chill and let my ego recover. Well, the next morning, hotel don't care about your ego. They just, you got to get out. So I know I got a long flight home back to Pittsburgh from Miami, Oklahoma. So I go down to breakfast. A bunch of the other fighters are there, winners and losers. And because I don't want to look at my phone at all, I do something I don't ever do. I watched the news that was on the TV screen. And let me tell you something about this, man. I don't watch the news because I think the news is just it's overly negative. It doesn't do anything for you. And there's nothing you can do about a lot of the stuff anyway. But I watched the news. I was like, man, I need a distraction. And the first story I saw was about the bombings that they had been doing over in Syria and the effect that it had had on the population and how the city was just bombed out. It looked like something from Fallout, man. It was awful. And I was like, damn, man, all I did was I just lost the fight, man. This cats out here, they really struggling uh, on other parts of the world. And then the next thing I saw, if that wasn't enough, uh, there was a police shooting where they shot some black dude outside of a Walmart in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the local news was comparing it to another shooting that had just happened to this cat named Keith Lamont Scott. Uh, it was a similar situation, and I was like, man, there's people out here dying. So that's two stories now where I see people dying, and it puts my whole thing into perspective. But if that wasn't enough, the most tragic story came next. During the night of the fight, where I was, busy fighting, not watching the news, not aware of what's going on, some psycho walked into a mall in, I believe it was Cascade, Washington. Yeah, Cascade Mall in Washington State. He walked into a mall and shot five people, ended up killing all five of them. And one of those people was a 16-year-old cancer survivor. So I'm sitting here all like, man, all I gotta do is go home and figure out the next step in my fight. In my fight career. It sucked that I lost that fight, and the way I lost it was awful and embarrassing. But I get to go home. I get to go back to my loved ones. I get to go do something. I'm not, my life isn't over. My home isn't gone. My income source is gone, but that's another story for another day. But I can come back from all of that. I'm not in the ground. I'm not disfigured. I'm not. Uh, I have a place to go. Uh, and then at that moment, I remembered something that I was told back when I was an amateur boxer. When I was out, I was training out in California out the Rock Gym out in Carson. That's where Charles Martin came from. That's where Dominic Brazil came from. Uh, Mike Hunter was out there fighting for a while. All of these guys, and it was a great experience for me. That's where my sponsorship was, and it really elevated my game to the next level. But while I was out there, and we were getting ready to go to the Olympic trials for that year, aka the men's national tournament up in Fort Carson, Colorado. The group, I guess the guy who ran the program, Michael King, he was friends with a bunch of big wigs and high rollers, and he brought in Randy Couture. And Randy Couture came and talked to us. And Randy Couture, he was talking about, being in the Expendables and his career in the octagon. But he said something that stuck with me, and I've shared it with other fighters since who have suffered losses and embarrassments and things like that. Randy said to me, he said, look, man, if the worst thing that happens in your life is that you lose a fight, you have led a pretty good life. And that's hard to like digest. In the moment it sounds good. It sounds like one of them feel good motivational things. But really in the months after that fight, man, it really in the months after the fight I lost, it really helped me make it through a lot of stuff, man. It made me realize that I still had a lot of things going for me. I wasn't going to be destitute if I didn't choose to be. At this point in my life, though, I had taken off a semester from school. I was done, almost done with my degree in physics, and I could do a lot of stuff with that if I wanted to, and I could still fight. So my life, the only thing that changed is that my ego got dragged to the mud, and I got reminded that one of my favorite songs, by the Human League. I can't remember what the hell the name of the track is right now off the top of my head, but it's about Human League, and the lyric is, don't forget, I put you where you are now, and I can put you right back down too. And that reminds me of like how the universe works when your ego gets too big. When your ego gets too big, you think you're invincible. You think you're on top of the world. And I wasn't like a mean dude or nothing like that. I didn't talk down to people, but I definitely was feeling myself. And then I got that gut check. I got that reminder that I'm still just a human going through stuff. And then when I was feeling bad about my stuff, I got that reminder that there are a lot worse things going on than just losing a fight, even if it's, you just feel bad about it. And then, you come to find out people got other stuff to do anyway. When we get embarrassed like that, when we feel like our ego has been shattered, we think the whole world's watching us. We think because we think everyone else cares because we're the center of our world. So we assume we're the center of everyone else's world. It doesn't really work that way. People got other shit to do, man. They really not thinking about you. They really don't care what you do. You might be like a temporary bit of laughter for them, but as long as you ain't crossing somebody's path and trying to do someone dirty, no one really cares what happens to you as an individual. I mean, you might get lucky and meet some cool people every now and then. I certainly have met some people that have changed my life who didn't have to. And there's always your mom and your daddy if they're stand up individuals and they're doing right by you. But for the most part, man, no one really cares, and you're gonna die, and everyone's gonna forget you. But you won't forget you until, you die. And then who knows if you got consciousness, but that's beside the point. My point being that if you think a little embarrassment, because that's what it is, a little embarrassment is going to ruin your life. Remember, there's people dying out there, man. There's people losing their homes. There's all kinds of crazy shit happening in the world. And if the worst thing that happens to you is you get embarrassed, you live in a pretty good life. With that said, if you got problems with getting embarrassed and you can't make steps and make moves in your life, I got this great free ebook for you in the comments. It'll be the pin tweet. Actually, I'm not going to put it in the comments, or maybe I'll put it in both. Pin tweet in the comments. It's the 4 Confidences. It's a great ebook I wrote a little while ago, shortly after this experience, and it's how I put together my ability to go back to school. I was a failing math student, and I ended up getting a degree in physics. I didn't start boxing until I was 22, and ended up going on to have a pretty decent career. That awful loss withstanding, and I think you can get a lot out of it, and it's free. Check it out. Until then, the rest is up to you, and I'll see you in the next video.